Okay,
Yeah.
active fascial contraction via the myofibroblasts. Everybody should know this is the only way in which fascia contracts. There is no other motor nerves going to fascia, no other way that we've seen that the fascia contracts other than through trauma and scarring. That it gets a little shorter than it was before, as well as thicker and more felty. But if you have a fascial contracture, that's because the muscle contracted, like in a kid with cerebral palsy or something. The muscle contracted. The fascia was there for so long that it is now built in a contracted position. But the fascia didn't contract. The muscle contracted. The fascia responded in the same way that it does with all of us to that neuromuscular set. In this case, the neuromuscular set never changed, so the fascia simply set in that position. Okay, now if we're talking about the myofibroblasts, we need to know that the myofibroblasts are closer to smooth muscle cells than striated muscle cells. So they work in a spiral contraction, not a linear contraction. So I suppose if you put a whole bunch of them together in a row, you could get a linear contraction out of it. But when you say one side is shorter than the other due to myofibroblasts, I've got one eyebrow raised. Really? It's not muscles that is doing that. I think it's mostly the muscles that started. We've seen myofibroblasts may be active in Dupuytren's contracture here as a malformation, perverted physiology or pathology. We know that they get active in my legs when I've done one of the 14-hour plane trips because water begins to gather, and so the crural fascia the myofibroblasts get active in the crural fascia and bring it in. We also know if you're working out, the myofibroblasts will get active in your thoracolumbar fascia. We know that they produce a few newtons worth of force and that is appreciable in terms of the stiffness of the thoracolumbar fascia and therefore its readiness to resume loads. But I have never seen any evidence that myofibroblasts, other than this Dupuytren's contracture, were the cause of postural changing. So I started de-emphasizing the myofibroblasts in my talking simply because people grab on it and say, "Oh, fascia is contracting." Well, yeah, kind of. But there's no nerves going to those myofibroblasts. They don't run on caffeine. They don't run on adrenaline. They run on oxytocin and nitric oxide. It's a very physiological, not a psychological or biomechanical thing, in my opinion.
And we're growing, we're continuing to grow beyond the muscular model, which was again questioned by Adderall originally, and you helped me think beyond back in the 90s or 80s or whatever it was. But there's that idea that, well, we could just treat fascia like a muscle. It's contracting and it's pulling in this way muscles might. And we're realizing there's so many other ways that it may be a participant or not in the picture. And there's so many other factors involved as well.
Again, I love Ida Roth. I think she was a genius. There was nothing in her whole fascial talk, because we didn't know it in the 70s, about the elasticity of fascia. There is nothing in yoga that builds the elasticity of the fascia. If you're doing nothing but a stretching yoga practice, you are not utilizing the properties of fascia that we now know are there.